Hello everyone, and welcome to Nintendo Everything Refresh, episode 35. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, joined by Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
And that's it. It's a smaller cast this week.
Yeah.
Yes, but don't worry, we are here to delight and amuse you, as always, with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. Even in this slower holiday season, we've got some surprising news this week, actually. Some behind-the-scenes stuff, some Metroid news, although just not the Metroid news that you're hoping for. I'll just get that out of the way right now. The Mario movie, we got a trailer for that this past week. Some updates for some games, good updates and bad updates. We'll get to that. So yeah, it's that time of year for sure. And with the Game Awards coming, gosh, just a couple days from the time this episode will air, we should have quite a bit of news, hopefully, coming out of that for the Switch. So that'll be exciting. But before we get into the news for this week, let's talk about that giveaway we did last week. Dennis, refresh my memory. What was that giveaway for?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that giveaway was for the Front Mission remake.
You are correct, Dennis. Yes, we are giving away 5 copies of the Front Mission First remake, which is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. That game actually just came out, and there's 2 more planned. They're remaking the first 3 Front Mission games. So yeah, last week we announced the giveaway, and we had some folks entering on YouTube, and guess what? Everyone who entered wins a copy of the game because only 4 people entered.
Yeah.
You can't win if you don't play, folks. Like right. 200 people listened to this episode over on YouTube, and we've got an extra code just sitting here. Yep. Just waiting to be played. So
all it took was a comment. That's all it took.
I know.
Nothing out of your wallet. And
yes.
But yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, like we were talking earlier, where it's just like, it's cool when it works out this way, right? Because I think with most giveaways, it's everyone wants a piece of the pie, right? But that's not realistic, But so when everyone wins in a situation like this, it's like super awesome.
Yes. And look, we're a smaller podcast, and our listeners are being rewarded for tuning into this smaller podcast.
Absolutely.
See? You never know, folks.
Yep.
Anyways, our 4 winners, I'm going to try and pronounce these, are andrebarrozojr. I think that's pretty close. We got GasKanOnFire. Love that one. We've got Annex and 47 Drift. So thank you guys for leaving comments. We will reach out to you via your social media handles, and we will be DMing you codes to the game relatively soon. So keep an eye out for that. All right, let's get into our news for the week, because lots of exciting stuff, actually. I want to start with just a total out of left field thing. And this one comes from our friends over at DidYouKnowGaming. In case you guys aren't aware, they're a YouTube channel. They do a lot of just really outstanding research into forgotten games and canceled projects and bits of gaming development history that have been swept under the rug. And we got some Metroid insight this week. We learned about some Metroid projects that were pitched, some were canceled, some developed into other things. And it's a really great video, so I encourage everyone who's listening to go check it out if this sounds at all interesting to you. But the first thing that I just want to talk about is, at one point, Retro Studios was working on a pitch for a Metroid Tactics game, of all things. So Dennis, just off the cuff,
Yep.
What an idea.
Yeah, look, honestly, like it's weird to think about. I feel like during that era, which I miss so much of that era, because I feel like the 3DS did so many. The 3DS had one of the few libraries that you saw, I think even outside of the PS2 and the Wii, really, that you saw risks being taken, and just so many unique games, even within franchises that were known for being in a certain genre.
Sure.
And just giving them, a brand new perspective. And yeah, anything tactics excites me because I love strategy RPGs. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame,
Yeah.
but I mean, I get it.
So some background. So this was a game that Retro Studios, a small team, I should mention, they were kind of working on internally as a prototype for like a Wii game. And they were working on this in late 2007, right after they finished up working on Metroid Prime 3. And so this was supposed to be a prequel story to the entire Metroid franchise. And you control Samus, but the idea was you'd also control some Galactic Federation troopers and some bounty hunters, and it would play out like a strategy game. In the video, they described it as basically XCOM, which, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. XCOM is
No.
one of like the most highly regarded strategy franchises out there.
Yeah.
So, and we did get this one screenshot that they showed, and obviously this is like a pitch screenshot. If you want to go see it, you can watch the video, or we have an article up on NintendoEverything.com. But it looks like exactly what you would imagine a Metroid Tactics game would look like in an early prototype stage. And I just am really curious to see how something like this would have played out, like with the Wii's motion controls. I'm sure that was a big idea at the time,
Yeah.
Samus, I feel like would be really cool to play as, but I'm wondering like, with like the other like galactic troopers and stuff, and like I wonder how much diversity they would have had in terms of like the cast, like who you'd be playing as. It would have been really interesting to see come to fruition.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I feel like historically now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because my history with Metroid isn't as deep as I'd like to admit. But I have played quite a few, but it seems like the ones that I have played, uh, they Samus usually is like alone, like outside of like maybe a couple of cutscenes here and there that may or may not be flashbacks or just memory logs and things like that.
Uh-huh.
Samus is usually like all by herself, like on like some desolate planet, So
This is
that's
true. Yeah.
yeah. So like in terms of a cast of characters, at least in terms of allies, yeah, I'm not sure how you would sort of come up with a team. But of course, with a brand new game, if you have the creative freedom, I mean, you can just create a cast of characters, So
Right. Yeah, Samus does interact with other characters in
yeah,
some of the Metroid games, but yeah, for the most part, when you're actually playing the game, she's usually out on her own. So yeah, it would have been a really interesting dynamic, and it sounds like, if it were a prequel, they could have gone pretty hard on the story, and I really want to know like what an entire prequel to the entire Metroid series would look like, Um,
I mean,
they say that the story would have started from the very moment when Samus Aran first separates from the Chozo who raised her from her childhood and becomes a
yeah,
bounty hunter. Which,
okay,
that would be such a cool story.
that'd be sick, actually. Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't realize it was like the very beginning because I was gonna say like wasn't Other M sort of a prequel more or less? Um,
Yeah,
but
and maybe that's the game that got made instead, because
yeah, it's
Nintendo,
possible.
I mean, we've heard similar things in the past with other franchises that, sometimes they only like to have, a game in development for certain franchises at a
Yeah.
time. So maybe that's something to do with this, but this game actually never even made it to Nintendo. They never even managed to pitch it to them. So it makes you wonder, like what could have happened?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so just a cool little tidbit there. But that wasn't the only Metroid project that we learned about, courtesy of DidYouKnowGaming. They also talked about the game that eventually morphed into Metroid Prime Federation Force. So originally, there were a couple different Metroid projects that were being worked on for the 3DS, or there were rumors of them. There was some leaked concept art, all kinds of stuff. And at one point, they were actually starting off making another DS game. So we did end up getting Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS, but they were working on another project called Project Valkyrie, which they described as, Did You Know Gaming, I should specify, they described it as a pretty straightforward multiplayer deathmatch. So they were trying to resurrect the multiplayer modes that were in Metroid Prime Hunters and Metroid Prime 2, and turn it into its own game. And eventually, I guess this, was kind of transitioned into other projects and eventually became Metroid Prime Federation Force. Nintendo came to them and they were like, "Hey, make this a 4-player co-op thing," and they're like, "Okay," because you don't say no to Daddy Nintendo, right? Yeah.
That's how you end up with the ninjas on your doorstep, the Nintendo ninjas, man.
Yeah.
And then that's
You
it.
don't
I
want
mean,
that.
say goodbye
That's it.
to
That's the
everything.
end.
Yeah, you're off the grid at that point. No social security, nothing.
Yeah. But it makes you appreciate that, like, you know, so Metroid Prime Federation Force, at the time it was like shown off, and even when it came out, a lot of folks were kind of disappointed because it was not the Metroid game that they were hoping for. But this game was in development in some way, shape, or form, we now know, for 7 years. Like, going all the way back to the DS, which is just crazy.
That's wild. I mean, considering what we ended up getting, I mean, I mean, who have you ever met anyone that actually liked Federation for? Because that's the game we don't talk about. You know, when it comes to Metroid, that is the game that everyone's hush hush about. It's like the Voldemort of Harry Potter. Like
You know?
you don't say that name.
I don't want to pass judgment on it too hard because I haven't played it, which makes sense because it's one of the lower selling Metroid games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have not played it. The one that really just baffles me is Metroid Prime Blast Ball, which I think
Okay,
they
yeah.
revealed that one before they even talked about Federation Force.
Yeah,
Am I right
yeah.
about that? So,
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
oh
But
man.
that one, like, surprisingly, like, I mean, it was definitely a point in time, wasn't it?
It was a point in time, yes.
But
Oh
at least
man.
that, I feel like, stylistically even made more sense. I mean, yeah, it's goofy to think about, but like uh, well, you said Blast Ball. I think I'm thinking of Pinball. I'm thinking of Metroid Pinball. That's what I'm thinking of.
There is also the Metroid Pinball,
Yeah,
but no,
yeah,
the
because
Blast Ball was like the
was that the
maybe
Rocket League thing?
yeah, it's the
Okay.
it's the Rocket League thing.
Ah,
Good way to put
Jesus
it.
Christ. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, that was part of Federation Force. Yeah. Oh man,
I
what a
wonder if the servers are still online for that. If
I,
you
you
were if
know,
you were playing listeners, if you were playing Metroid Prime Blast Ball in this year of our Lord 2022, please leave a comment and tell me more about yourself because I want to know you as a person.
there's got to be some like underground like scene where they're like still setting up like what is essentially esports tournaments, but for Blast Ball.
Oh, I mean, you
Huge,
hope, right?
huge crowds we don't know about that are just hush hush.
Yeah,
Just
we
completely
can
underground.
only cross our fingers and hope
Yeah.
that's the case. But yeah, no, as I have never played that one, so once we get closer to Metroid Prime 4, whenever that game comes out, I do want to go back and replay, some of the Metroid games that I missed, and also replay through the Metroid Prime trilogy because I love those games. But I'm gonna make a point to also check out Federation Force because some people say it's not as bad, it got a bad rap, and I want to give those people a chance. So.
I, I mean, look, I'll reserve my statements from here. If that does happen, just keep me in the loop, Nick.
Dennis, we could play it together because they say
Well,
it's a game that you are supposed to play with people. Makes
yeah,
it easy.
well, of all games, I don't know if that's the one to.
I was just like, can I sell you on Federation Force? Probably
I
not.
don't know if that's the one to socialize with.
All right.
I don't know if that's the one to pull
Fair
out at
enough.
parties, Not
All
unless you
right.
want
Well,
everybody to go home.
let's talk about something a little less depressing then.
Okay.
We got a surprise second trailer last week for the Super Mario Brothers movie. Previously, all we had really gotten was a quick kind of teaser trailer. Gosh, I guess it was a month or two ago. Feels like it was a while ago, but it really wasn't that long ago.
I think it was
And
October. Yep.
yeah. And so we finally got our first full trailer, giving us a look at a ton more about this movie. I mean, we get to see Peach, we get to see Donkey Kong. Let's talk for a minute, Dennis, about these character designs. So what's
Yeah.
your take now that we've gotten to see some of them a little more up close?
Yeah. So just strictly focusing on character designs, I think they all look great, man. I think Illumination was just perfect for this project because it's clear that they just have such a prowess and proficiency with, animation that has clearly been seen by the rising popularity of each new, Despicable Me and like Minions movies. So, and those movies, actually rewatched a few of them. A couple weeks ago, we watched Minions: Rise of Gru, and then we saw Despicable Me. I think it was the first one we rewatched. I can't exactly remember, but either way, you can see how far they've come from
Oh
the
yeah.
first Despicable Me to I think the newest one was Rise of Gru actually, and yeah, no, it's like night and day, and those guys just have such an attention for detail that is, and to do that in such a short amount of time because Illumination hasn't been around for long, if I'm not mistaken. They're certainly not, they don't have the history that Pixar does, or like
Right,
DreamWorks,
right.
you know.
They're a newer. I mean, I think there are some very experienced people working there,
Oh,
but
of
yeah,
course,
as
yeah,
a name, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, their first, I think, real big one was Despicable Me. So to see
yeah,
them working on the Mario Brothers movie,
yeah.
which,
That's huge.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
that must be a big honor for them. But yeah, I mean, character-wise, I think everything is great. I do think Donkey Kong's new design is a little, it's just a little goofy. But honestly,
a little bit.
I don't, oh, just a little bit, yeah. But otherwise, everyone else looks great. Mario grew on me pretty quick. It was weird seeing his new design. It was almost the slight realism to him was a little off-putting, but otherwise, it's grown on me. But Toad still looks cute, obviously, but dude, getting like a good look at Peach this time in this trailer. Oh my God, dude! Like, she looks amazing. Like Peach
Yeah,
looks great.
she seems badass, man.
Yeah,
Like, which is
absolutely,
not
dude.
the typical interpretation of her character. So that's
No,
kind of
no, but
cool
I'm
to
so
see.
happy to like see this though, man, because honestly, like she deserves more respect. Because anyone who like, outside of the mainline Mario games, honestly, like she's always been able to hold her own. Whether we're talking Super Mario RPG, any of the Paper Mario games, maybe not Paper Mario, but like the Mario and Luigi games, anyways. Super Smash Brothers, obviously, she had her own game, Super Princess Peach. The list goes on, and like, yeah, dude, like she's capable of so much. She'll smack the hell out of anybody, But I think the problem is she's too nice. So she's like, you know what, Bowser, I'll let you have your fun. You can kidnap him, whatever. I just want to see how this plays out, But she could easily just smack the hell out of him if she wanted to, probably, And seeing her grab that like massive mace or that axe or whatever from that from
You're
that
like,
night,
yeah, just like, okay, I
yeah,
guess she's wielding weapons now.
that's what I'm saying, man. Like, yeah, it's just
It's
awesome seeing her like
crazy.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm blown away by the animation, and I mean, obviously, I mean, if you haven't seen this trailer, do yourself a favor and go watch it. But there are so many just like little, I mean, not very subtle, but just like a ton of just references to like all different parts of Mario's lore, and I mean, towards the end of the trailer, they even show off that like there's Mario Kart, like the actual kart racing is to be worked into this movie somehow. Towards the beginning of the trailer,
somehow, yeah.
Mario and Donkey Kong are fighting, and maybe that's a Smash Bros. Kind of thing. I have no idea. Or Mario versus Donkey Kong. I guess that's probably the more canon thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see Mario like looking at a sink, like going back to his plumbing roots, which that kind of cracked me up a little bit. I will say overall the humor is not really doing it for me. I watched the trailer and I don't really think the jokes are particularly funny. It all feels like just like very safe movie
It
humor,
is
kids movie humor.
it's definitely very slapstick for sure. But some of it made me laugh. Some of it made me laugh honestly, because like I get they're trying to make a more, you know, they want this for a wide general audience, right? So I mean, the
Sure.
humor is not going to be for everyone, but you don't want to go, you don't want to go too raunchy or dark, but you also don't want to be too
Well, I mean, speak for yourself,
kiddie.
Dennis. I would love to see raunchy Dark Mario. That would be
Oh, well, me too.
quite
Oh,
the
well, me
movie.
too. Absolutely. But I mean, it's you do want to make something that humor, which is difficult, right? Because humor is just so subjective. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
not everything's gonna land with everybody. But overall, I mean, I do think it's okay. But yeah, but you're right. It is a little too safe and a little too slapstick for my liking. But overall, I mean, it man, this trailer was just fantastic. I mean, really blew
Yeah.
the first one out of the water, if you ask me.
Well, and also worth mentioning that, like, trailer is not always like, usually my understanding of the way it works in Hollywood is the people who edit trailers are often different people from the people who edit the movie. So,
That's right. Yeah.
they're probably picking out all of the typical trailer lines, but who knows? Maybe the movie's script, like seeing it all together, it might be a lot more entertaining. And so I'm trying
Yeah.
to withhold judgment until I actually go see it.
Right.
I think, the last time we talked about this movie, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna go see it in theaters or not, but I'm kind of leaning towards I might have to go see it. It just looks too creative and too interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a lot of charm to it, I feel. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those movies that's going to be very difficult to wait out on, and I think a lot of people are going to definitely want to go to the theater for this one for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking of coming to theaters, we got a more kind of narrowed down window. We now know it's coming in April 2023.
Yep. That's right.
So couple months away, but not too far out.
Yeah, we'll
So
probably
yeah.
get maybe one or two more, probably two more trailers, maybe even three, three more trailers before then. But yeah,
Now, did you watch the full direct? Because I just saw the trailer. I didn't see the
I
whole
did.
direct.
I did watch the full direct. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't much longer than the actual trailer. I think the whole direct was like couldn't have been more than 6 minutes. I mean,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
yeah, it was literally the same format as the first one, where it's just like they had some of the actors talk. In this case, in the first one it was Chris Pratt and Jack Black. Now they had Anya Taylor-Joy and Seth Rogen speak before the trailer started, and then Miyamoto was there,
Gotcha.
obviously introducing himself a little bit, and the head of Illumination as well, and then yeah, then the trailer finished, and then I think Miyamoto spoke for maybe like 30 seconds more after that, and then yeah, and then that was it. So
So I want to run. This kind of popped in my head. You're talking about Miyamoto a little bit, and we all know he's very involved in this movie, and he was also very involved in the development and the design of Super Nintendo World, which is,
that's right.
they opened up their Japanese park, and there's one coming in Hollywood next year. There's another one planned for Orlando, Florida. So I'm wondering, with all these projects that he's working on, do you think this is the reason why we haven't gotten another new, like totally new, original mainline Mario game in that time period? Because he's been working on these other projects.
I think it wouldn't surprise me if it played a part, but if I'm not mistaken, I think forgive me, Yoshiaki Koizumi, I think he's kind of taken over. I mean, Miyamoto still supervises everything, but really he hasn't really touched, um, a Mario game since, God, I mean, not since Galaxy 2,
Really?
maybe.
That
Yeah,
long?
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Like again, he's still part. Like his name will still show up in the credits because he supervises, and then he might even pitch a couple of ideas. But if you look at Mario Odyssey and that its entire development, if I'm
No,
not
you're
mistaken,
right.
Koizumi, who's been hosting Nintendo Directs as of late, he's basically been at the helm. Kind of like how Aonuma has taken over Zelda, basically. Because
Right, right.
so it's kind
Okay.
of so
No,
yeah
no,
so
you were right about that. I mean, still, there goes my theory. But no, I was just thinking about it because I was thinking about how long it's been. I mean, the last 3D Mario game we got was in 2017 with Super Mario
yeah,
Odyssey. So
that's
just
right.
it
Yeah.
feels like we're due for one. So in my head, I was like, oh, maybe that's a reason why. But huh? Well, there must be something else going on with all that.
I'm not sure unless they're just really trying to, because it seems like every Mario game, kind of like Pokemon, where it's like it has to have a gimmick now, So I think
Right.
they want to nail not just the gimmick, but they want to make sure it feels good, right? And like they'll take as long as they damn well please, because Mario is their, that's the that's the cream of the crop for Nintendo, right? That's they want to make sure that that's a home run hit every time, because Odyssey was, as far as I'm concerned, a masterpiece. So it's in just about every 3D Mario game has been. Um, so yeah, I mean it's and then when did we get the Bowser's Fury? Because that really scratched that itch for a new Mario game for a while.
Yeah.
Was
I
that
think
2020,
that was just
2019?
last year. I think.
Was that just last year, really?
I mean,
Oh.
it might have been 2020, but what is time at this
Yeah, what
point?
is time? Yeah, I don't even know anymore. Yeah.
It's all an illusion. No,
Uh,
yeah, no, just last year, February 12th, 2021.
oh wow. Okay, yeah, because Bowser's Fury was fantastic, man. I mean, it was short. It was only like maybe 4 or 5 hours, but like, man, like that really hit the spot. Because that's why I bought that game. Because like, I mean, I've beaten 3D World to hell and back like three separate times on Wii U.
Sure,
I
sure.
I love 3D World and even 3D Land on 3DS. So I bought it for Bowser's Fury, and I played that immediately, and 100%ed it. Did everything, and yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't long, but man, it was so good. It was like that perfect balance between Odyssey and the sort of 3D World format, and yeah, I don't think people talk about Bowser's Fury enough, man. Like Bowser's Fury was like great, like really really great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think a lot of people may not have played it because it was kind of, with this port of Super Mario 3D World, which
yeah,
a lot of people have played, and um, I mean, not necessarily a ton of people because it was stuck on the Wii U, but
sure.
maybe that was a factor.
Yeah,
Um,
it's possible,
but
but
yeah,
yeah, no, well worth. I mean, honestly, like I was happy. I thought it was well worth the $60 after, even though I didn't get many hours out of it. It was that good where I was just like, oh yeah, no, this was like this was well worth the money. So,
yeah,
um,
that's high praise for a game that short, but 3D Mario games are rarely a miss, you know.
very true.
All right, let's keep going because we got quite a bit more news to hit on this week. So another recent game that came out, Sonic Frontiers. I actually reviewed for Nintendo Everything. You can go read the review now if you want. Overall, I was mixed about it. I thought the game itself was pretty solid, but just the Switch port I was not really impressed with personally. But regardless, a lot of people are playing the game. A lot of people are loving it. Some people are not liking it. And Sega recently revealed that the game is getting some free content updates in early next year. So some of these are things that we'd heard a little bit about before. Um, I'll just kind of run through, the whole announcement real quick. So we're getting one update that includes a photo mode, which I'm sure is just going to be ridiculous because have we ever had a photo mode in a Sonic game before? I don't think we
I
have.
don't think there might have been one in Forces. Don't quote me on that, but otherwise, I don't
Yeah, I
think
don't think
so.
so because
Yeah,
Forces kind of came out before the whole photo mode craze.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so the game's getting a photo mode. It's getting a jukebox mode, which they haven't really elaborated on too much, but I guess it's a way to listen to music. Really good music in that game, so I'm not going to complain about that. And then new challenge modes, which don't really know what that means. When they say like challenge modes, I wonder if it's like an actual like different, like a whole separate mode like outside of the main story. Because right now you're just kind of plopped into the open world.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see what a challenge, like maybe like a boss rush mode or something.
I can see that, or I can just see like just like time trials of like you trying to go through a bunch of rings that in like all these crazy loops and jumps, in a short
Yeah,
amount of time.
yeah,
Possibly, I can see that too.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out soon. And so that's just in the first update. So the second update, there, this is where it gets a little bit silly. We're getting Sonic's birthday. They're patching Sonic's birthday into the game. I don't know what that means. Is it just decorations? Is it a side quest? I don't know, but we'll all be celebrating Sonic's birthday.
That'd be cool if they just added like a new sort of. I see. I like chill stuff like that though because I don't know why. That's the stuff that to me is most memorable. Is always the downtime, right? Because I think with games like these or just games in general, really, a lot of gameplay is centered around as much interaction from the player as possible. And usually that comes from excessive combat, or if it's a racing game, obviously you're always holding down the trigger and you're turning, the drifting, whatever. But it's the chill stuff in
Yeah,
games
yeah.
that to me is the most memorable. So,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, and there's already a lot like to do in Sonic Frontiers, and they are adding more. They're adding more like open zone challenges. They're adding more Coco, which the Coco are these little. They're basically Korok seeds you have to go around and collect. So they are adding a lot of stuff like that in these free
yeah.
updates, which I'm sure for people who really like the game, they'll be happy about that. But yeah, if you've already played the game to death, it might just be nice to have a little bit of visual flair here and there. And I think the real big thing on this roadmap is, at least what they're saying is the big thing is, they're adding a new story and more playable characters. So it sounds like, when they say more playable characters, the image they show has Tails and Knuckles and Amy, and it's got the new character in the game. So, so that would be really interesting. I mean, I know we've had other playable characters in Sonic games before, but I'd be curious to see how that would work because Sonic Frontiers is just a very different type of Sonic game, and so it'd be interesting to see how they try and adapt these other characters to this whole open world that they've built for Sonic.
Yeah, I wonder if they're trying to implement some sort of Sonic Heroes, type gameplay to it or something. I just feel like Sonic Forces, just because of how, sorry, Sonic Forces, sorry, Sonic Frontiers, because of how open it is. Open, what is it? Open zone? Sorry, I'm not gonna say open world. Open
Well,
zone.
I still call it open world, but a lot of people insist on calling it
Yeah.
open zone.
I just want to be, I don't want to piss anybody off.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. So, uh, but uh, but yeah, no, it's. I feel like there's so much to like that you can do now that Sonic is sort of freed from the shackles from that he can just have a, you know, crazy time with that you can implement in these worlds to just help them grow or even introduce new lands as DLC to play around with. I think that's super super.
yeah, yeah. It's great just to see that they're supporting the game to this extent. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
people who really do like it are gonna have a lot to look forward to next year. It looks like. And there's a small update coming this year that's adding in like a holiday costume for Sonic because can't have an open world game without customizable costumes.
No.
So there you go. All right, now this is an update that I regret having to deliver. This one is not as exciting. Um, it's always a sad day when we see a game get delisted, especially a big game. And Fuser was a pretty big game. It was published by Harmonix. Is that weird? Did you ever play it, Dennis? It was
Fuser, no.
Harmonix's. Yeah, okay, but you're familiar with it, right?
Yeah. I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who haven't played it, Fuser was a game by Harmonix, the folks who created Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and you know the whole shtick with this game was that you're basically it's like a DJ simulator. I don't really want to call it like a full simulator because it's a very arcadey version, but the whole point of the game is just to mix different songs together and learn how to time your song changes well and how to transition and it was an interesting game. I played it, but the game did not do very well, and they announced that they're delisting the game and they're shutting off all the online modes. And I think the real sad thing here is this might be the last game we see from Harmonix because they were purchased by Epic Games. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind
I
of crazy.
Yeah, it's a shame given, their rich history. Um, but it also doesn't surprise me at all. I think with music games, especially ones where you need, though this one, did you need a physical sort of contraption to play this one, or could you play this like with just a
No,
controller
yeah,
or like,
this one didn't really have any accessories. It was all
okay,
gamepad based.
okay. Um, those days are sort of, in a way, regretfully, they're over. You know, it's the model just doesn't work anymore because everything is either subscription
Yeah.
based, and when you do a lot of licensed music, that costs a whole lot of money. And so, this, I mean, you think Forza's bad, for having to, delist every couple of years because of contracts having to,
Yeah.
expire with car manufacturers. No, music is far worse, I promise you. So,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
crazy. You'd think at this point in like the history of rhythm games, the major companies. I mean, Harmonix. I mean, you'd think for creating some of these very iconic franchises, they would have the leeway to work out licensing agreements that are affordable, and maybe they
yeah,
did. This may have nothing to do with licensing costs. It really may have just to do with the fact that Epic owns them now. no one's playing the game really, and so they just don't want to keep it up and running. But
It's possible, yeah.
if they're taking it down from sale, that does make me think it has something to do with the licensing. So
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
it's weird because I don't think it's a problem with the rhythm genre either, because if anything, I feel like the rhythm genre is alive and well, because and maybe it's just me being more exposed to it than most people, because I love rhythm games. I play all the Hatsune Miku ones. I play all the Taiko no Tatsujin ones that we've gotten lately, and Musinks, and what was the other one? Alpha. Oh
Oh
gosh, what
yeah,
was it? That
there's a
one. Yeah.
ton. There's a ton of
There's
them.
so
The
much. Yeah.
Sidus games.
Sidus.
There's
There we go. Thank you. Sidus Alpha. That was it.
the
Yeah.
one with the weird demon pianist thing with the
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
looks like a NER
Demo.
character. Yeah.
Yeah. That one was great. Yeah. I love all of those. I've owned all of those. I've played the hell out of all of those. Like, we're talking like so many hours. And yeah, so it's not a problem with the rhythm genre. I think the problem literally comes down to licensed music, because what all these games have in common, the ones that I've listed, is that majority of their music, if not all of their music, is original. So, and if anything, they'll work with other artists to create original music for that particular game.
Right.
Unless it's some, high profile licensed collab that they know that can last forever. Like something with like, a Vocaloid, where it's just like, you know, I mean, sure, the company can, that owns the Vocaloid can have some sort of contract to it, but otherwise, the Vocaloid themselves, I mean, they're Vocaloid. They're not gonna like come knocking on your
They're not
door and
gonna
just be
sue
like,
you.
"Yo, yeah,
The
where's my
Vocaloid
royalties, man?"
ninjas. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't gotta worry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. So yeah,
No,
it's
those are
unfortunate.
all great points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just still have a hard time with the idea of games getting delisted because yeah, I guess the delisting I can understand more than like shutting down the servers because this game only came out, I mean, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
If that.
so
Yeah.
if you bought this game full price and you sunk a lot of money into DLC, which you very well could have for a game like this, and now your game content, you're not losing access to any of the stuff you've bought, but you are losing about half of the ways to play the game you bought. And
Yeah.
that just always kind of rubs me the wrong way, and especially when it comes to the fact that a company like Epic could absolutely afford to keep, you know,
Of course.
licensing agreements and it could keep the
Yeah.
game running, but
Well,
yeah,
it's weird because you look at something like, I mean, since they own Harmonix now, but you look at something like Fortnite, right, which obviously is their, that's their cash cow. So, but they have so many emotes that use real licensed music. Granted, they're just little clips, and I'm sure using a
sure,
10-second clip is much cheaper than using, the entire song from 00 to whenever it finishes. So,
probably, yeah, probably,
um, yeah, so yeah, they can probably get away with it, but yeah, I don't know. It makes you wonder. I mean, there's so many legalities that come around the licensing and the distribution of music, and yeah, I'm not gonna go too into it because I actually used to be part of that industry, and even ran a label
really.
for a short amount of time myself. Yeah,
Oh, I
so
didn't know
and that's a whole podcast on its own, my friend.
that.
So
I'd love to hear about that sometime. That actually
yeah,
sounds
no
really
problem. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
it's a yeah, it's the legalities behind it all is it's an absolute mess. Yeah.
no. Well, I personally hope that this isn't the last we see of Harmonix. You know, I hope they don't just get absorbed into Epic Games to the point where they're not producing anything original anymore, because they had such a massive impact on the industry when they were at their peak, and
Oh,
it would be a
absolutely.
shame if this was how they had to go out.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many memories from, the rock the every rock band and every guitar hero of like the early 2000s, dude. Like, oh my God, the amount of memories I
Yeah,
have going from house to house, including my own, obviously just having friends over and just jamming out, man. I mean, that was how you
dude.
spent your weekends, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like,
I
yeah.
think a lot of people our age, even like casual gamers, will have at some point played a Guitar Hero or a Rock Band.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like there was a point where it was approaching the level of ubiquity that like Wii Sports had. Like it was.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the way we got it in our house, when my parents they ended up buying a Wii for our family. They
Mhm.
came back when they bought the Wii, they brought the Wii itself and they brought Guitar Hero. Those are the two games that they had bought with it. So
Yeah.
so we
Do
have
you have
Wii
a
Sports
favorite?
and Guitar Hero.
Do you have a favorite Guitar Hero? Like, did you play multiple, or was there only one in particular that you played over and over again?
Man, the only one I ever played was Guitar Hero 3, which
Uh,
was
well, that's good because that was the
the most
best one.
popular one.
Yeah, exactly. That was yes, sir. That was the best one. That was the best one.
Uh,
Yeah, they started going downhill after four,
yeah.
unfortunately. But
And you know what's really crazy is they still have them in the arcades. Like if you go to Dave and Buster's, you can still
oh,
find
really?
Guitar Hero 3 in the
Oh,
arcade. You
dude.
can still go play it.
Oh, no, you should have told me that. Oh, damn. Well, let's
There's
set that
usually
up
a
because
long line too. Like I usually like when I'm there, I usually have to wait quite a bit because everyone wants to play Guitar Hero. It's just crazy.
wow,
I'm
really?
like, yeah, there's still something there. I really feel like there's still something there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a market that you know, it's people are very fond of those memories and they love reliving those memories. But yeah, the problem is music again. The industry changes all the time, but music licensing is some of the most egregious it's ever been now more than ever, and it's more often than not just simply not worth it, And but yeah, I'll tell you what though, I knew the end times were coming the moment I saw Guitar Hero on tour on Nintendo DS. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never owned it, but yeah, that one just always it actually looked kind of fun. I wanted that game as a kid. I'm not
I
gonna
don't
lie.
know, man. That nonsense. I didn't understand why it existed. I mean, other than the fact that I'm sure they could have sold, God knows how many units, because the DS was in. Everyone had a DS.
Well,
That was one of
Dennis,
those.
you're asking an impossible question. Why do we climb Mount Everest? We climb
Yeah.
it because it exists, Dennis. It's the same thing with Guitar Hero for the DS. It
Yeah,
had to be
that's
done.
true.
It had to be done.
Humans are fascinating. Let me tell you, humans are
Yeah.
fascinating.
You had a big old, hole there on the bottom of the DS. You got to put something there.
Yeah, that's true. And this is why and I asked these questions. This is why I went into like sociology and psychology in college because I was literally just trying to figure this stuff out. Just like why the hell are
Who
we
are
like
these
this?
people? Yeah.
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 I got to understand the way you think. I got to get into that brain literally and just, I got to, I got to understand how this stuff is wired. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me. So, somebody give me an answer, please.
Well, hey, look, hey, speaking of psychology, all right, this is not really a great transition, but I'm going to go with it because I already said it. So Nintendo, I don't know what has been going through their head with the game trials that they've been doing for Switch Online lately, because a lot of times they pick games that I don't think a lot of people care about. But but this time they actually picked something that's kind of good, and I'm excited for it. Nintendo announced today that they are doing a game trial for River City Girls, which is a kind of I don't really know how to describe it other than a maybe like soft reboot of the River City franchise. Like River City Ransom, all those old beat 'em ups and brawlers. Yeah, so there's a sequel coming out, River City Girls 2, and I'm sure that's why this game is getting a trial now. But I've heard great things about this game. It's supposed to be actually a very good arcade-style brawler, and the art looks gorgeous, and it looks really fun, and I think I'm actually going to check it out.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned all the game trials and stuff because like literally, let me put it this way: they've been doing this for a while now, but I've literally never taken advantage of a single one.
Never?
Single one, never. And
Wow.
and however, this will be the first time because I've always wanted to
Okay.
play River City Girls, and it was on Game Pass for a little bit, but I never got around to playing it when it was on Game Pass either. So now I can, finally actually check it out. I was planning on downloading it actually after the podcast. So yeah, this will be there's a first time for everything, I suppose. So
Yeah, the only other Switch Online trial I tried was when they put the Pokken Tournament DX up for a little bit.
okay,
that was,
yeah, yeah.
That was a pretty good one because that was like a full price Nintendo game. I was like, that doesn't
Yeah,
happen
yeah, yeah.
all the time.
But I'm always confused why they do this with stuff that's like years old. I feel like the Nintendo Switch Online, I mean, people always criticize its value anyways. I mean, yeah, it's not as expensive as other, platform services and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I
well,
mean,
let's get on there, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah, with that expansion pack, Jesus Christ.
yeah.
Well, in some cases more if you buy that family pack. But yeah, it just, I feel like the value would increase more if you gave your members something, I don't know, a little more recent. Like, why not early access to River City Girls 2? Why not that?
Sure.
Instead of, here's a game that's been out for 2-3 years.
Right.
Try out a
Look,
demo.
I do feel like this is a great pick for the service because with the game trials, you only really have a week to play it. But this game is actually short enough that you could feasibly start and finish it in a week if you were
Yeah,
dedicated to it. So
yeah,
that's
which is
kind of
exciting.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's what they're doing is kind of similar to what Xbox does. Xbox, like pretty much every weekend, they have like a free play weekend for
pretty much. Yeah,
if you're like an Xbox Live Gold member. What is that? There's only Game Pass now, but yeah, if
yeah,
you if you have Xbox Live Gold, you can play certain games like just for the weekend,
Mhm.
and they do that every weekend. And I
Yeah.
don't feel like Nintendo really has any rhyme or reason to when they do these game trials. It seems to just like sometimes you get one in a month and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I think it's so sporadic. I think it's just one of those things where they're just in a board meeting and somebody's just like, we actually haven't done it in a while. I forgot about this, and then they
Like, oh
start
yeah,
doing
we
it
have
again.
this
It's like, oh,
thing.
game trials. That's right. Damn,
Yeah, maybe we should do
that's
that.
right. Damn.
But yeah,
Where were
hopefully
you?
hopefully this one does well, and Nintendo realizes like, oh, like these are the types of games that might do well for game trials, and maybe we should
Yeah.
do more of them and more often.
Yeah, because River City Girls is like super high quality, and I've heard nothing but great things about it, especially if you're a fan of brawlers and stuff like that. And it's awesome to see this stuff come back because what was it that came out recently? Streets of Rage 4, which was like
Mm-hmm.
so good, so good when that came out. And yeah, it's just awesome to see this genre just thriving again because I've always loved beat 'em ups, and then the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just came out, Shredder's Revenge, I think,
Yeah, there's a
which
little
has
bit
just
of a
been killing
resurgence
it.
going on right now for the
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah, and I'm just a big fan of WayForward in general. Also, I think they're very talented
Oh yeah,
developers,
yeah.
and
I didn't even
they're
mention that. Yeah, WayForward is
yeah,
making this. That's enough of a
that's
reason to
right,
pay attention.
exactly. And their creative team, dude, like their illustrators are like some of the, as far as I'm concerned, some of the best in the business. Like really. So River City Girls, looking as great as it does, no different from Shantae and Mighty Switch Force and all the other stuff that they do. It's just their art is just it's so striking,
Yeah, no
and it's
doubt.
just wonderful. Yeah, and that's a big part of why I love them so much.
Yeah, anything coming from them. I mean, occasionally they put out like a licensed game that people don't
Yeah,
really care about, but something like this I think is worth putting on your radar,
yeah, for
especially if
sure.
you're a Switch Online member.
Yep.
Hey, while we're talking about just beautiful 2D games, here's another one I want to shout out. This one just got an announcement that's coming to the Switch. This game is called DNF Duel, and it is a 2D fighting game based on a franchise that I have not heard of. Um, I actually don't. It's called Dungeon and Fighter. Are you familiar with this franchise at all, Dennis?
I am not. I've heard of it before, but I've not played it at all.
Yeah. Okay. I really don't know anything about it, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I will say, God, this game looks gorgeous. I mean, this is another thing where like we've gotten so many just amazing looking 2D fighting games, and this one is just kind of came out of nowhere for me. It's been out for a little while on Steam, and it's has gotten just great reception overall over there. Um, so I'm really happy to see this coming to Switch. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks really solid. I love seeing like fluid 2D fighters like that. Do we know who's? I'm sorry. Did you say who was working on it? Like who's the developer behind this? Is it
So it's there's a couple names mentioned. We've got Arc System Works, which
okay?
makes a
That's
lot
what
of
I was looking out
sense.
for. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I was looking out for.
yeah,
Because I was gonna
and
say Arc.
Nexon is the publisher.
Oh, Nexon. Okay, yeah, I know Nexon. Actually, Nexon. Okay, you know what? Really quick, let me call out Nexon.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
gonna call
go
them out
for it.
really quick. There was a Ghost in the Shell game that came out a couple years ago. I believe it was called like First Assault or something like that. And that game must have been up for like all of a year before they shut it down. And that hurt me. Okay, because Ghost in the Shell is Ghost in the Shell is like Sailor Moon, right? Where like obviously they're nothing alike, but it's weird that you have these globally known properties that barely get any video game material at all. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and then you get something
So
like this where I don't think a lot of people have heard of it, and it's getting this just beautiful looking game.
yeah, which is great, which is great. But yeah, I just wanted to call them out on that because man, that still hurts. I wake up and I think about that sometimes that game, and they shut it down. And it's just like man, that was all we had. That was the only Ghost in the Shell game like available right now, other than like one that
Right.
came out on like PS2 or PSP. Like 15 years ago, you know. But anyways, the reason why I was asking who was working on it because Arc System Works has been absolutely killing it in the fighting genre, and
Oh, yeah,
they
no
have
kidding, man. They have not
yeah.
like struck out in a while.
No, man. Like I feel like ever since I want to say Dragon Ball Fighters, really, they've developed this art direction that beautifully and perfectly blends 2D and 3D animation.
Mm-hmm.
That is just unrivaled. And it's funny you bring DNF Duel up because I literally bought over I think the Halloween sale. I because it was only on sale surprisingly for a few dollars. I think it was the cheapest it's ever been. I picked up Grand Blue Fantasy Versus actually on Steam because
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
another one
yeah
that you don't hear a lot of people talking about, but in the fighting
yeah
community, it's really built up quite a reputation.
yeah it has and that's another beautiful one from Arc System Works and it's like every time I see their name attached to anything, dude, I'm in immediately. So like you bring up DNF Duel, like I knew nothing about it, but now that I'm looking it up, oh my lord, like I think I'm in, dude. I'm in.
Yeah,
So
I think that I mean, other than the art, the thing that you mentioned is just I just absolutely love how when you're launching a special attack and you're just absolutely pounding on an enemy, the camera just slightly shifts to the side a little bit and you get to
yeah
see all the depth that they really have built into these characters and into the
yeah
world. It's just those little details are like when I play a fighting game, I want to feel powerful, sure, but I also
yes
want it to feel stylish and smooth and fast. I don't
yeah
want to feel like I'm having to like clunkily, avoid like every. You get what I'm saying?
yeah
Like
no I understand what
speed
you're saying.
and
Yeah
fluidity and style
yeah
play a huge role in just
yeah
making it feel
it's
fun.
yeah because I mean it all comes down to pacing, right? Where you want to make that as fluid as possible. Same thing with God, it's on the tip of my tongue. Like Blaze, well, any Blaze Blue really, but the one that was like a massive cross, was just a cross tag battle. That one
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Mm-hmm.
they did that one too, and like that one was so awesome. I don't know, man. Arc System Works is just they're sort of in this like god tier phase where they've gone like Super Saiyan Blue,
They've
and
reached
like
their final form.
right, or even Ultra Instinct really, and then they have not stopped. Just since then, they've just been killing it, dude. Each
Yeah.
entry, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what game it is, just fluid animations, incredible polish. I mean, really, everyone could learn something from them. Like they are the new sort of template to compare yourself to. Even if you're like a 3D fighter, like you can be in your own space. Like Street Fighter 6 will, obviously isn't competing with something like DNF Duel, right? Um,
Sure.
but but still, just in terms of fluidity and animation and stuff, like there's a lot to learn there, man. Like Arc System Works really is just really just on the Mount Everest of fighting game developers right now.
Well, hopefully it's a
Not
good
Mount Everest,
port.
sorry.
That's the
No.
only unknown.
Yeah.
Hopefully it runs stably and no major issues. But yeah, for the
Yeah.
time being, I'm excited to see how this one does. All right, one more kind of news tidbit I want to make sure we get to, and this one I just want to touch on briefly, just because it's a point of frustration for me in particular. So, over in Japan, so we just learned that in Japan they're getting the release of the soundtrack for Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, which is the Fire Emblem game that came out earlier this year on the Switch, and it boggles my mind at this, and let me tell you why. So
Okay.
not only do they not only does Nintendo just not release their soundtracks basically in any official form in North
Right.
America at all, it seems like the main thing that they do when they're releasing a lot of their games in Japan is they release them on just on discs. Like they're releasing this whole soundtrack. It's on 4 discs. It's got 118 tracks, and and you better hope that you can either import it or that you have a CD player laying around,
I was
because
gonna say.
otherwise
Yeah.
you know and I just don't get it, man. Like
Yeah.
there's so many just iconic pieces of music that Nintendo's composers have produced over the past 3-4 decades, and it all needs to be more accessible, in my opinion, than
Yeah.
this.
I I think it's disrespectful to the musicianship of these artists that work so hard on these compositions, because these are beautiful songs that and pieces that connect with a lot of people, and which is saying something because, well, number one, Nintendo's always been known for having incredible music, right? When you think of catchy theme songs, in video games, or catchy music pieces in video games. People start humming the Mario theme song, right? People start humming, the Smash Brothers theme song. There's just all these wonderful pieces of music. God knows, I mean, Zelda alone is comprised of just masterpieces from every which direction. So it doesn't make sense to me that you would withhold all of this stuff from people. And as someone who's composed their fair share of stuff, also, it's one of the most exciting parts about finishing a piece of music, outside of the fact that thank God you finally finished it, because sometimes they can take forever, especially if you want to nitpick and you're a bit of a perfectionist or whatever. But it's finally letting it out into the world and seeing people's reactions on it. Obviously, not everyone's gonna like the same thing, but
Right.
but when you do have those special connections from people that truly feel each note that goes into their ears, it's a special feeling that is seldom found elsewhere. And Nintendo's always had really world-class, music composers alongside Square Enix, where they have some of the greatest music in video game history. And once again, to withhold that from the masses and keep that locked, imprisoned, really,
Right.
into the games is quite frankly a crime, and that's money on the table, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's money on the table. Like, you could sell these soundtracks no problem. Like, what are you worried about? You own this stuff. Money goes directly to you. You're worried about pirating? Okay, people are gonna rip the files regardless. Like, it doesn't matter.
No, people are going to rip the files if they can't stream them. That's what's
Right.
going to happen.
Exactly.
People are not
Exactly.
going to pirate anything if you make it available to them. Like, that's
Correct.
how it works.
Yep.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I mean, to their credit, like, they do sometimes release things. Like, I feel like there was a point in time where you could at least get, and maybe you still can, I haven't checked, but they used to have like a couple albums on iTunes. I feel like I remember for some reason that you could get like Super Mario Galaxy orchestral music on iTunes at one point. Maybe that was a
Yeah.
fever dream, but I feel like I remember that happening. And
One.
obviously, sometimes they release things through collector's editions, but
That is true, yeah. One of my, because I own a few Nintendo, like, compilation CDs, but one of my favorite ones, if not my number one favorite one, is from an old, God, it must have been an old Nintendo Power magazine back in the GameCube days. And it was a CD that was an entire live orchestration of basically every piece of music in Super Smash Bros. Melee. And man, if I didn't have that thing on loop for just years, really, I mean, God, it was just a brilliant CD. And but yeah, I think that was the only way to get it, was through like the Nintendo Power magazine. But yeah, it's just crazy that this is just lost, in history. There's no there's no preservation. And when these games and their music deserve to, quite frankly, be in a museum, just because of their historical impact, value, and the sheer artistry of it all.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess if you want a digital Nintendo soundtracks, you can always boot up Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and put your Switch in your pocket and put it into
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
jukebox mode. I mean, that's basically the
Yeah.
same thing, right? That's all you
Yeah.
really need.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're not doing that, can you really call yourself a hardcore Nintendo fan if you're not willing to go to that length to
That's the whole
listen to-
reason why. That's the whole reason why I bought a fanny pack, Nick.
Right.
Just so I could, have that while I'm on my jogs.
You know,
Morning
actually,
jogs,
it is a good use case for the Switch Lite. I mean, that's actually a smaller device. So if you were like really hardcore about listening
Yeah.
to your Smash Ultimate soundtrack, well, there you go.
Yeah. My Switch Lite Walkman.
Might actually fit in your pocket. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, I just need to get that off my chest. I feel a little bit better now. Hey, let's talk about some games that came out this past week. We got some pretty cool indies that came out this last week, as well as, believe it or not, Dennis, another Square Enix RPG.
No. My God.
It's beyond comical at this point. It's if there is a single week where there's not a Square Enix RPG, being released, that is a newsworthy week.
Yeah.
It would be more newsworthy for that not to be a
Yeah.
Square Enix RPG
Oh
at this
my
point.
god. And then doesn't Crisis Core come out next week too? If not the end of this week? My
It
lord.
does. It does indeed, Dennis. Next week
Oh
we are
my.
gonna, believe it or not, another Square Enix RPG.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
I mean, we're grateful. Don't get us
Oh,
wrong.
absolutely. I mean,
But
let me tell you something. As someone who loves JRPGs, I mean, this
yeah,
is,
this is
it's great to
wonderful.
be swimming in them, but also please realize that, each of these games are 50 plus hours, and to get within each of those within a week while still trying to do, your daily routines of living your life and having a job and doing all of that, like, come on, be
Yeah,
real,
it's not
like,
possible,
yeah.
unfortunately. I think at this point they're just trying to have an RPG of every flavor to appeal to every potential type of customer, so
Yeah,
that no
but there will
matter
be more
what
years
type
to
of
come.
RPG you like, you can get it. What was that?
I was saying like there will be more years to come. They're trying to get all this out by the end of the year. Like they're just like, I mean, this is it. This is it.
Yeah,
After this, that asteroid's gonna hit. No more Earth. Bye bye. We got to make the money while we can.
yeah.
By the end
Well,
of
they
that
got to get them
fiscal
out
year.
now before. I mean, I don't know if you caught the announcement, Dennis, but next year their games will only be available as blockchain NFTs. So, I mean, that's
Oh, fair
it.
enough.
So this is the
Fair
end of the
enough.
road
Yeah.
for, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All of this before
Um,
we have Leonardo DiCaprio showing up on everybody's TVs, being like, "Look, we got to do something about this map. Asteroid
yeah.
coming down our way."
Yeah, pretty much. No, but the Square Enix RPG of this particular week is Romancing Saga Song. I always say that wrong. Minstrel Song Remastered, which is I think as I phrased it the first time we talked about this game, a remaster of a remake of the first Romancing Saga game, which I have not played. But what I've heard about this game is that it's very atypical in its structure in that it's extremely open ended, and that it almost borders on being more of a like like in a lot of role playing games, like you have a very like ultimately you can go and explore and do some things, but ultimately you have like a very linear path to the ending. And from what I've heard about this game is that it's extremely open ended, and that's its main thing. It's more of a like being an RPG character simulator, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
But I haven't played it myself, and I really want to. It seems like such a unique game that I really want to check it out at some point.
Yeah, I was kind of perusing through the eShop the other night, and I looked at it because I believe it may even be on sale for like the whole cyber sale thing they're doing, and
It's like
I remember.
$25, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, and but one thing caught me off guard. I don't know why this game looks like they just took a 4:3 image and just stretched it into a 16:9 widescreen format. Like I don't know, it
Huh.
just doesn't
You
look.
think so?
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
something
know.
about it. The image presentation looks off, and also that art style, man. I can't. Like I'm a sucker for Square Enix RPGs, but like, I'm sorry, this game is like ugly, dude. Like and the thing
It's
is
not the
like.
best. Yeah.
No, and it has nothing to do with it being like an old game because God knows like I have a soft spot for retro games, so you can give me those all day. Honestly, I'll take those any day of the week over your photorealism games, but but this one in particular, dude. Like I don't know what it is with their body shapes and stuff like that, but like they look like bobbleheads. Like not even like a cute chibi like big head like type way. Like they look like bobbleheads to me, like things you see on like the front of like a trucker's dashboard. you know,
No, they do.
like yeah.
Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the art style they were going for in Bravely Default 2 a little bit with the character models, except worse.
Much worse,
Yeah.
yeah. Because Bravely Default doesn't bother me, but yeah, but this, like, I'm looking at a picture now, and like, I'm gonna close out of this tab. Yeah, no, I'm good.
So you don't get nightmares.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
yeah.
it's not, it is an old game. They do say they've given it a full HD graphical upgrade, which I don't really know what that means, but yeah, to me it doesn't look super stretched, but maybe it is. I feel like it's just the art style. I feel like that's just the characters' faces, unfortunately.
Yeah, which is
But I
weird,
have
because like,
heard it's a good game. If it's your particular niche of RPG, I've heard it's a
yeah,
very good game.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's good that it's at least a good one. But yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to jump into it, man. It was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I just because I'm gonna have trouble looking at this for God knows how many hours. So
With so many other options right now, I can't say I blame you personally. But yeah. Well, this might be a little more your speed. We talked about this back when they revealed it for the Indie World presentation. But Inscription is also now out on the Switch. That
yep.
mysterious, spooky deck builder game, maybe, with some other surprises in store. They say the big thing with this one is to not know too much about the game before you go in. So I am trying to stick to that.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Feels like
Yeah, that game looks super
feels like
unique.
a good game for a handheld system though. Just card-based games like that feel like a good fit for the Switch.
Yeah, I think it's honestly a shame that there aren't more card-based games on the Switch. I've been trying to figure out for years why Hearthstone, for example, is yet to be on the Switch. I don't. There's no reason why that shouldn't be on the Switch. But who knows?
Yeah. Wait, it's not on the Switch?
Hearthstone? No, no. I mean, there's games like it, you know. But
Wow.
the actual Hearthstone, yeah, no. You would think, because that's another platform for Blizzard to just rake in the cash from. But you know, I don't know. For some reason,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not.
that's a little baffling. Um, but yeah, no, hey, I mean, Inscription might fill that void if you're looking for something like that.
Yeah.
If you're in for some surprises as well. This one I want to highlight mostly because I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it, and I'm not sure why, because it looks outstanding to me. So this game is called The Night Witch, and it is a if you look at it, it's a mixture of like bullet hell and side scrolling and deck building and like a bunch of different things, which, you know, oftentimes when a game turns into genre word salad, I kind of check out a little bit. But
Yeah.
seeing this one in motion, man, this game looks great. It looks challenging. It's got a super like beautiful art style to me. I really want to get a sense for like how it actually plays because it looks like between, you know, the bullet hell mechanics and you are, you know, toggling between cards in your deck could be really fast and really fun to play.
Yeah, it's the illustration, like you mentioned, is very striking, and that's what caught my attention with that game right away. I've been looking at it. I don't know if it's something that I can click with. I guess I won't know till I try. There is a demo available on Steam. I'm not sure if there's one on the eShop.
Good to know.
But yeah, the game. Yeah, it's like you said, right? It's like I start. Same thing with me. I start to check out if there's too many blends of genres. Like I appreciate a game really trying to do something new, which it definitely looks like that's what's happening here. Um, and it looks like it's doing it well, also, which is awesome. But but yeah, because there's, you know, I don't know, there does reach a point where it just becomes too much, you know, and I don't want to be
Yeah, yeah.
overwhelmed. But for what
Yeah,
it's worth, the game
some
does look
people
really good.
like that. Some people like, you know, mechanics on top of mechanics. But I'm generally with you, Dennis, in that like I'd prefer like a simple game that is like
Yeah.
striking in other ways.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, even if simple's not the best, I mean, like even just something more
Yeah,
focused. You know, focused
that's a
is I
better
think the
word.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, because I mean, again, yeah. I mean, I'm all for you want to make something complex, go for it, but make it intuitive and make it something that doesn't, again, overwhelm me. Because with so many mechanics on top of mechanics, you know, some are gonna be prioritized over others depending on the course of the game. So, you don't want to just add something just for the sake of adding it with no real merit, because otherwise
yeah.
you just have becomes a mess.
Yeah, it's this game has currently got mostly positive reviews on Steam, so some people are really enjoying it. But yeah, one of the first reviews I see up at the top here is that this game tries to do way too many things and ends up doing none of them very well. But other people disagree, so you know, hard to say without playing it. I don't ever really like to judge something too hard without actually trying it. But yeah, that game is out now on Switch if you are curious to see how it all plays out. All right, we're running a little bit long, so I just want to quickly go through these last couple games. Well, at least these two. So Swordship we talked about previously. That's that super unique, cell shaded. It looks like an F-Zero game, but it's not. It's more about like dodging enemy attacks and surviving. And very fast paced, very stylish, very like arcadey in its structure. Looks great. I'm very excited for that one. That one is out now. And then if you're a Tetris fan, well, you have another Tetris game to play on the Switch. The Arcade Archives franchise, they have been, man, they've been churning out games on Switch, Dennis. Like,
Yes, they have.
they do not take a break. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where it's just like, look, the Switch is our new home for arcade games. Just put everything there.
Yeah. Well, if you like Tetris, you can now purchase Arcade Archives Tetris, the Grandmaster. That is the full name of the game. And I guess it's a harder version of Tetris, which, how do you really make Tetris harder?
All I can think about is it goes faster. But
Goes
that's really
faster?
good.
I know it like grades you, like it grades you on your performance, which
Ah,
does sound a little stressful if you're
yeah.
like a high score snob. But yeah, I like Tetris, but I don't think I'd buy another Tetris game because I already have Tetris 99. You know?
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I spent like what, like $20 for that. Like if you want to like buy the full version of that game, it was like $20. So yeah, I think I'm good on my Tetris for now.
Have you played Tetris Effect?
I have played Tetris Effect.
Oh man, dude, that
Oh,
game is like borderline perfection. I
it's
love that game.
it's art. It's yeah.
Yeah, it is. Have you tried it in VR? Because I tried it when it came out on PSVR, and it was one of the most cathartic, otherworldly things I've ever experienced. Like, let me tell you something. Like, of all games to sell a VR system, I don't think in a million years I would have thought Tetris Effect or any Tetris period would have been the one to do it. But man, if that game isn't the reason to go pick up a PSVR, let me tell you, that game is beautiful.
Yeah, I have it on my Quest, but it's I prefer playing it on my TV just because I feel like the Quest can't really
Yeah,
push out sharp enough visuals compared to my
that's true.
TV, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
feel like the same experience really.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd imagine like on the PSVR 2 when that comes out, it'd
Oh
be
man,
freaking
yeah,
amazing,
that
man.
dude, get some nice headphones because with that music, I'm telling you, dude, you are transported into another dimension. It is, that game is, my God, I can't stress enough how beautiful that game is.
Yeah, no kidding. Um, Okay, and one last game. This one just I always like to shout out smaller games when I get the chance, and this one is so cool. So this game is called Papitura. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is a totally handcrafted game. Everything in this game is made from paper, or just otherwise handcrafted, and like the environments and oh my gosh, it's stunning. And if you actually go, you can watch trailers that shows the person who made this game like crafting the environments out of like by hand. It's stunning. It's a point and click game. It's pretty short. It's only like I think it's like an hour ish is what I heard. So don't go in expecting a super long time. But man, like out of appreciation for the artistry on display here, I felt like I had to mention it.
Yeah, I love myself a good puzzle game, especially if it's like if it's done like this where everything's handcrafted. I think that's just incredible to see. It's kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with the Swapper, but
Mm-hmm.
the Swapper was a fantastic game that came out probably about a part of 10 years ago, and that game was made entirely from clay, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't look like I didn't
I
realize
did
until
not
after
know
I beat
that.
it. Yeah, I didn't realize that either until I
Wow.
beat it, and I just doing more research on it, and then because I was just so fascinated by that game, and I found out, yeah, no, that game was made entirely in clay, which is wild. Yeah.
That is really wild. I never would have guessed that from playing that game. Um, well, that is our show for the week, pretty much, folks. Thank you, as always, to all of our listeners who tune in and support us every week. We really appreciate it. But before we go, we are going to end with our classic segment, What Have We Been Playing? And Dennis, let's start with you. What have you been playing this past week or so?
Sure. So, actually, just last night, my girlfriend and I we beat the new Dark Pictures game called The Devil in Me.
Ooh,
Yeah,
spooky.
yeah. I'm a big fan of those Dark Pictures games, man. Man of Medan was great. Little Hope was really solid. House of Ashes, nah, that kind of hit, that kind of missed the mark for me. But
Okay.
this one was definitely a return to form. Very good. Not as good as what Supermassive released earlier in the year, which was The Quarry. The Quarry was awesome. But The Devil in Me, for what it's worth, was still really, really good. And
You've
yeah,
played
but
through all of them then, it sounds like.
yes,
Wow.
yes, I've played through all of them, even their earlier stuff like Until Dawn, and then the lesser known one like Hidden Agenda, which was a PlayLink
Oh,
PlayStation
I
game.
do remember hearing about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one
We
was weird
haven't
because
gotten any of their games on Switch, have we?
I don't believe so. No, not even like a cloud version. No.
Yeah. Well, that's probably for the best, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, believe me, yes, it is. But these aren't games that I mean I think you'd feel like you wouldn't want to play these games in handheld anyways. I feel these are definitely like TV movie night type games. You
Yeah.
know?
Cuddle up with your spouse or your partner,
Yeah.
or get some friends over and have an experience.
Yeah, yeah, and they're great for that, man. Especially Hidden Agenda, because like I mean, I've played that game 3 or 4 times over, and each of those was with a crowd of people, and it was awesome. Just uh, you know, passing it off,
Yeah.
person to person, and seeing everyone kind of make their own decisions with their own character, almost as if we were the ones, in the story. So yeah, no, it's awesome. But The Devil in Me was really, really solid. Honestly, I went in thinking it was like something about possession because I didn't look at many trailers for this, right? Because with the Dark Pictures, like I'm already so into this series and so loyal to it that like just announce a new one and bring it out. I don't need to see trailers. I'm already in. You know what I mean? Like I'm already
Yeah.
sold on it. So I didn't look at many trailers. I thought just from the title alone, The Devil in Me, I thought it was something about possession, right? Not the case. It's really just like a haunted hotel. But even then, it's not really haunted. Now, without going into spoiler territory, it honestly felt more like Saw by the end of it.
Okay, I'm glad I was gonna ask you about that because when I saw the trailer for it originally, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, this seems like they're just trying to do their own take on Saw.
Yeah,
Is that
and
what it is basically?
yeah, basically. Yeah, that
Okay.
is almost like the nail on the head, basically. Because by the time the credits started rolling, I was like, yeah, no, that was basically Saw. The opening was really strong and definitely did not seem that way. But yeah, once things started picking up, I was like, oh, this is just,
Mm.
this is just Saw,
Do
especially
you think
with all the.
is that a good thing? Do you think, or does it feel kind of rote because of that?
No, 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 no. It was fine. I mean, but also maybe I'm a little biased just because I'm a big fan of the Saw series. Like Saw is one of my favorite franchises. So I mean, to have that be done, not necessarily replicated, but done in its own fashion was sort of refreshing because admittedly the Saw movies they get very they do not get better as they go on, let's just say that. So to have something that sort of feels like a return to form but be its own sort of take on it, clearly inspired by but not necessarily trying to replicate,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was really nice to see, and they did a really good job with it.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited for the next one. Each one of these games has always had a little clip of the next game in the series right at the end of the credits.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the next one's gonna be God, what
It's
was it?
like
It was
it looks sci-fi-y
sci-fi.
themed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They're like on the moon or something. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
something 80/20. I'll have to look it up really quick. But yeah, the next one's gonna be super sci-fi in the future, which will be definitely interesting. So I would imagine that would probably be more along the lines of like, from what the trailer made it seem like, I'm guessing somewhere between like Dead Space and Alien
Mm.
is the vibes I'm getting. But yeah,
Yeah,
looks great.
I really am just curious. I mean, I know this is, it's, I don't know like all the inside workings of how the studio works or anything, but it's rare to see, a studio be pumping out these games so frequently. And I mean, I think these are published by Bandai Namco, right? If I'm not
That's correct. Yeah,
mistaken.
that's
Okay,
right.
so I mean, we have gotten pretty consistently a new game in this franchise every year, and I don't I feel like they're not like super high seller games. But I remember even when they announced this franchise, they're like, we're gonna make like this like 6 game series, and
Yeah.
they've been doing it. So it's weird to see like you don't see a lot of franchises that are actually like guys like even right now with the Avatar movies, they're like, remember way back when they're like, oh, we're gonna make like 5 Avatar
I do
movies,
remember that.
and
Yeah.
we're just now getting the second one. But they've
Yeah.
been keeping their word and really turning out these games, and they all seem to
Yeah.
be pretty good, at least for the most part.
Yeah. I think that's the most impressive part. Yeah, is like they're consistently really solid. And however, I will say, going from the Quarry to the Devil in Me, you definitely see a big jump in production value. In this case, the production value went down. The Quarry was
Oh,
published by 2K, and that 2K money definitely came out,
huh.
versus, Bandai Namco, who's, still a fairly large billion-dollar company, but they're not, raking in the money like 2K is. They don't have the Grand Theft Autos or the sports games and things like
Right.
that.
Well, because the
So,
Quarry isn't part of that franchise, so
no,
maybe they were
no.
pitching the Quarry as more of a like, whereas the Dark Pictures are kind of its own thing. The Quarry was supposed to
Yeah.
be more like the true sequel to Until Dawn. Is that kind of the vibe I'm getting?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah, because this was also the Quarry was also a $60 game versus all the Dark Picture games are $40, right? So they're budget titles,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But overall, yeah, it's still really solid. I'm just impressed that they managed to put not one but two games out this year. The
Yeah,
Quarry
it's crazy.
included on top of Dark Pictures, and then now they have this coming out next year. Directive 8020, I looked it up.
And they've got a
Is what
VR
it's
game
called.
coming out next year as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And I forgot they also did God, what was it? The in it was a VR game, another VR game, earlier PSVR game,
It,
the
it was like the
inmate?
Until Dawn spinoff.
It kind of, yeah, because it was about like the Wendigos and stuff too, like Until Dawn was about. Um
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The Inpatient.
the
Was
Inpatient,
that what it
thank you.
was? But that one, I
Yes,
didn't
yes.
think that was by them. I thought that was by a different studio.
Was it? Let me look it up. Let me see.
Yeah. Quick Google check here. We're obviously a professional podcast. We clearly do
Yeah.
all of our research in advance. No, you're right.
No,
It's
it's by them,
Supermassive
yeah.
Games. Yeah.
Supermassive, yeah. Yeah, that game was crazy, The Inpatient, but I'll admit that's probably out of everything that I've played, that's probably their weakest one. I wasn't too impressed by the end of it. Honestly, by the end, I was like, thank God that's over. Because like even though it
Oh,
had a lot of good moments, like it just wasn't. I don't know. I just wasn't
yeah.
impressed
Well, can't
by
win
it.
them all, right? When you're
Yeah,
putting out a game a year. Um,
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm glad you've enjoyed that. I played Man of Medan, but I've been meaning to check out some of the other ones. So, hoping to
definitely.
get
I
around
think
to
you'll like
some of
them.
them soon.
Yeah,
Well, as far as what I've been playing, I've just been dabbling in a couple things this week. I'm kind of in between games at the moment. The big games. Um, Last week I was playing a little bit of Death's Door. This week, the main thing I've been enjoying the most is Escape Academy, which I've been playing with my wife. Yeah. Have you played Escape Academy?
oh yes, oh yes. I actually played it a couple months ago, just on a whim. My girlfriend and I played it, and let me tell you something. That game was hard to put down. Like we were so into it because we love escape rooms. Like even in real life, we love
Yeah.
escape rooms.
Well, it's hard to put down when you're doing well.
Yeah,
I
fair
I
enough, fair
will
enough.
admit, look, okay, so for those who haven't played Escape Academy, it's a cool concept. It's basically a series of virtual escape rooms that you can play in local co-op if you want. You can play them solo, but it's a game that seems like it's kind of designed to be played locally on the couch with folks or
Oh, for sure.
online, I
Yeah,
think. Can you play it online? I think so.
I think so.
And yeah, and there's a narrative tying it all together, but it's not really the focus by any means. The main focus is just on these really cool escape rooms that you probably wouldn't, you know, see in real life, which is for the best because these are like life and death scenarios in these escape rooms most of the time.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. No, when it comes to escape rooms, my wife, she really loves them, and I like doing them with her, but I don't always have the patience for them because
Sure.
it can be very stressful sometimes. And especially when you have to like work with other people, and especially if you're in a room with strangers, it can be a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, it's the
but
time limit that gets me. That's the thing.
oh, yeah,
Like,
and
because
they
I'll
designed
stand
the
there and think all day, but like the moment you give me a
right.
time limit, that induces stress, and I keep looking at the clock. Even after just 10 seconds, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and it's part of the fun, but I feel like especially with the in-person escape rooms, they design them to be so hard that you can't beat them. Most people can't like will have a hard time beating them, so that you have to come
Yeah,
back and do it.
yeah,
But this game, to its credit, I feel like does a really great job like making the whole format like more accessible to people who aren't smart like me. Um, so like you have all these different like levels of difficulty, and the hint system is great because you can ask for a hint at basically any point, and you do get a small penalty on your score, but it does a good job like nudging you in the right direction while still making you figure some stuff out on your own.
Yeah.
I really wish this game was on Switch because it just feels like it would be such a good fit for it. But right now it is not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you get the expansion pass for it, or were you just playing it through Game Pass?
Not yet. Maybe once we finish the base game.
Okay.
But yeah, I could be sold on an expansion pass, perhaps.
Yeah, because we ended up liking it so much that not long after I did end up buying the season pass for it, which does add. I think they have two different like packs for it in the season pass, and they each come with like 4 levels each, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
that's
So
pretty good.
yes, so you get quite a few extra rooms to do. We haven't done them yet, but yeah, man, that game was hard to put down. We basically played from beginning to end, and we accidentally pulled an all-nighter because we enjoyed that game so much.
That's high
Yeah.
praise. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it was a
need
great game.
more good local couch co-op games like that.
Yeah.
'Cause it's always a good time when you've got the right folks.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, that is our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 35 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. Thank you again to all of our listeners. As I always mention, we are a small but mighty podcast, and your support means a lot. And please spread the word. If you like the show, tell your friends, tweet about it, share it somewhere, because we really want more people to hear about us and let us inform you of all the news, because it can be a lot to keep up with, even for us sometimes. It can be a lot to keep track of. But yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, if you're one of the 4 winners of our giveaway, please keep an eye on your Twitter DMs and also on YouTube, because we will be sending out codes to you as soon as we can. So thank you to all of our listeners. We hope everyone's having a great holiday season, and we will be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.